MLS is back with the MLS is Back tournament, which will be held in Orlando at ESPN's Wide World of Sports complex at the Walt Disney World Resort. That is a lot of titles. Here's another one. This is Miami Total Football Radio. I'm Eric Krakauer, joined by Franco Panizo at a safe 30 or so mile distance. Franco, how are you doing?
Good, brother. MLS is back, and we're back. So that's great news. Happy to be back on here. It's been actually longer than I thought it would be since we last had a show when we spoke to Luis Robles, had an interview with him. He was our first guest. And that, crazily enough, that's been already over a month. And it's wild because at that point we thought we would come back on somewhat more frequently. But it looks like we'll be able to do that soon. The tournament has been announced. Games will be held, and it's just the excitement starting to ramp up, and I am definitely thrilled to be able to start covering games again and being able to talk to you more.
Yeah, apart from that last part, everything else is true. There's only so many video games that you can play and so much football-y that you can play as well, Franco, even though I know that you have a winning record against everyone you play against because you post about it obnoxiously on every social media platform. But
I actually haven't been beating my stepdad in football. My stepdad's really good. He played he played pro in Peru. He played second division. Almost got promoted to the first division. And he's really good. Probably the best player I've seen in my life. That isn't obviously a full blown professional playing professionally.
Whoa. Have you forgotten about those 35 or 40 minutes that you played with me? No, I feel slighted.
My stepdad is like 3 times the player that you are, dude, and my stepdad's like double your age. So yeah, I would take my stepdad over, even though my stepdad has that South American Peruvian like maybe one trick too many or one move too many because he likes to put on a show sometimes, and then he's
the Andre Carrillo.
Yeah, he overdoes it excessively sometimes, and then he gets knocked over or the ball taken from him. But honestly, my stepdad, don't tell my actual father that I said that because he probably won't appreciate that. But my stepdad is very, very good.
Well, as you were saying that, I broke my MLS fidget spinner, but getting back on topic, after weeks of reports and intentions of staging a mini tournament in Orlando, finally we have such a tournament in World Cup style, and this coming after some less than pleasant talks between MLS and the Players Union, but things finally at the end when it looked like there could be a lockout, everything finally coming to a reasonable conclusion. But enough about that. Let's start talking about Orlando. Let's get to it. MLS teams will be playing in an official competition after having played 2 match days of the 2020 regular season. 54 matches, 26 teams, 6 groups, and eventually a champion who will be guaranteed a berth in next year's CONCACAF Champions League. So let's get you all caught up with these 6 groups, 3 in the Western Conference, 3 in the Eastern Conference. Miami's group, which is curiously made up of all expansion teams, including some old expansion teams like Chicago, who got their expansion in 1998. Miami's group with 6 teams, the remaining 2 groups in the East with 4 teams apiece, and in the West, 3 groups also with 4 teams apiece. So let's go through all the groups. Group A: Orlando, Miami, Inter Miami, NYCFC, Philadelphia Union, Chicago Fire, and Nashville. Group B includes Real Salt Lake from the Western Conference, Sporting KC, Colorado, and Minnesota. Group C is once again an Eastern group: Toronto FC, New England Revolution, Montreal Impact, and DC United. Group D is a Western Conference group with Seattle, Dallas, Vancouver, and San Jose. Group B includes Atlanta, Cincinnati, RBNY, the New York Red Bulls, and the Columbus Crew. And finally, Group F, another Western Conference group, LAFC, LA Galaxy, Houston Dynamo, and Portland. A pretty difficult group. So first observations from you, Franco, about these groups.
Yeah, I think they're pretty even on the whole. I mean, I would say Inter Miami's group obviously is the one group that a lot of people are talking about because it's the unbalanced group. Obviously, when you have 26 teams, can't really have even amount of teams in these groups, and especially in a World Cup style tournament. So obviously, that's the big talking point, right? How does that group play out? Because you can win 2 games, but then your destiny's not entirely in your own hands because other teams that you are not playing within your group could outdo you or could have more points just by beating other opponents. So I think that Group A obviously is for us is a big talking point, but I think for a lot of people across the United States and Canada, it's also a big talking point. But there are some good rivalry matches in other groups. LAFC versus LA Galaxy is one match definitely to watch. New York Red Bulls versus Atlanta United as well. There's some really good matchups in there, but I think if we're talking just groups, I think Group A is the most interesting one just because of that wrinkle that not every team will play each other.
And speaking of rivalries, there was some hoopla when Orlando City, Miami, the opening game of this MLS's back tournament, was handpicked by MLS. People weren't happy about that. A contrived game in a contrived tourney. I don't think there's much of a problem. It was sort of a celebration of Florida, given that these are 2 teams from the state of Florida where their tournament is being held. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that the top 2 finishers in each group, along with the 4 best third-place teams, will move on to the knockout stage. And in case you forgot, the winner of the whole thing will have a spot reserved in next year's CONCACAF Champions League. So let's talk about Group A. Let's talk about Miami's group because that's what everybody who listens to this podcast really wants to know about and how Miami will measure up to the opposition. So, Franco, as you look at all these teams and you know each one of them inside and out, do you think that Miami can be competitive in Group A?
Can they be competitive? They absolutely can be competitive. Just a matter of if how much rust has been accumulated, how quickly they gain steam, and obviously that first game against Orlando City is a big one. Winning that and the road to the round of 16 is much easier. Lose that and the pressure piles up. Diego Alonso, he had a conference call this week, a video call on Zoom with media. And I asked him about that, about winning that first game, and he talked about just exactly that. If you win that first game, not only do you get the points, but you don't have that pressure. You lose that first game or tie, you need to make up the points, and then you're starting to feel pressure, and you have to approach games a little bit differently because you have that necessity to go out and win. So I think, can they be competitive? Absolutely. Obviously, the group was announced today. The full schedule for the competition has not been announced, but we do know Inter Miami's schedule. They will start with Orlando City on July 8th. Then they'll play the Philadelphia Union after that, and then they'll finish up with the Chicago Fire. So those are the 3 opponents. We don't know the dates for the other 2 games yet, but those are the 3 opponents that Inter Miami will face in the group stage of this MLS's back tournament.
And you look at all the teams that are in Group A, and only the Chicago Fire, after 2 weeks of MLS regular season play, are on top of the or in position for a playoff spot. Every other team below them, and Chicago really only 1 draw and 1 loss in the first 2 games. So these are teams that at the outset seem to be very balanced, and I think we'll have some pretty good competition in Group A. And of course, that Orlando game, that's the rivalry. Well, that's what everybody wants to be a rivalry in Florida. Orlando and Atlanta right now are the natural rivals, or have been the natural rivals, because they are at a a proximity to each other, but that will be surpassed by, hopefully, will be surpassed by the animosity that will grow between Inter Miami and Orlando. Is there a favorite for you in this group?
So just really quickly, because well, I'll jump into it afterwards. Actually, is there a favorite for me in this group? I'd say the Philadelphia Union, not only because they were a playoff team a year ago or last season, but because they're the only team in this group that is bringing their head coach back, who's not in the first year under new leadership or trying to build a new team. Obviously, Miami and Nashville, they're two teams that are the expansion sides. This is their first seasons in the league. They have head coaches, and they're trying to establish their identities and their style of play. But the other teams, New York City FC, Chicago Fire, and why am I blanking? Oh, and Orlando City. All three of them have gone over with coaching overhauls during the offseason, and they're also trying to figure out themselves and their style of plays and their identities with their new head coaches. So the Philadelphia Union, for me, are the favorites. They're a tough team to play against. They scrap, they fight, they're defensively sound. They have Andre Blake in goal, who can win games for them. And they have this continuity that the other 5 teams do not have, including Inter Miami. But again, we have to see how much rust has been picked up by each team. Because on paper, we can talk about these games and it's fun, but we don't know who's where until we see the ball rolling, until we see these teams play. But if you ask me right now, if there's a favorite, I would say the Philadelphia Union are the favorite to come out on top.
Yeah, I would agree, and I'll go back to a question that we asked Luis Robles about having to start from scratch, because you have the first 2 weeks. We talked about the improvements from the first game to the second game, even though that was a loss as well to DC United. Luis Robles had alluded to the fact that they're going to have to go back to the drawing board in terms of getting the tactics down and starting almost from scratch, because it's just such a long time without proper practice, away from your teammates, and certainly away from Diego Alonso. You also mentioned that Diego Alonso said that you have to win that first game. If not, you're essentially playing catch-up, and you have to change the way you approach the games. Well, just like a World Cup group, and this is, and you already noted that fact, this is very much like a World Cup style competition. But you were going to say something.
Oh, because we were talking about, you were talking about Orlando, and you mentioned earlier that there was some hand-wringing about the fact that the openers, Orlando, Miami, and it was kind of hand-picked by the league literally 90 minutes before the draw was supposed to happen. I'm actually on the side of not really being a fan or liking that MLS made that move and went about it the way they did. This is a tournament that not only has prize money up for grabs, but this is a tournament that, like you said, has a CONCACAF Champions League berth at stake. And obviously obviously the groups are not going to be balanced because of the amount of teams in MLS. So that's already, not an even playing field for every team involved. But then you go ahead and make it even less balanced by handpicking a game or handpicking an opponent for the opening game. And I get it. It'll help draw attention to the tournament. Orlando versus Miami, Florida clubs, potential rivalry, budding rivalry. And that'll help draw some eyeballs to that game. But again, just because of, you want things to be on balance, to be as fair as possible. And that necessarily is not just for Inter Miami, it's just across the board. It's just not very fair for the Eastern Conference teams just to see that happen and just have, all right, well, because, what if you were a team that wanted to play Orlando City? You would have liked that matchup, and, now all of a sudden there's one less spot to play them. Again, it can be seen as a minor thing, right? And I get it. Again, I get having the game. I get wanting to pump up the tournament and drive some attention to it. But on the balance, I think it's a bit unfair for MLS, especially to do it 90 minutes before, to just kind of handpick
the draw.
Yeah.
Well, I'll add another point to support what you're saying, is that not only is one of the purposes of this tournament to get that much coveted CONCACAF Champions League spot, but the group games also count towards the regular season. So there is an importance to how you do in the group, not just to qualify and make it to the playoff round, but just the fact that you might win one game, that's 3 points for the regular season. So I think what you are saying is certainly not baseless at all. And look, this is a contrived tournament, and I know that you are in favor of it. You actually think it's a pretty decent idea. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I might actually add that it wouldn't surprise me if in the future MLS goes, you know what, that worked really well. Maybe we should do it again and turn MLS into or format MLS very much like some of the South American countries that have like 3 stages to the regular season, like an apertura, a clausura, plus playoffs.
Dude, honestly,
so I don't think that's too far-fetched.
I fully agree with you, dude. Honestly, like, I think this tournament, the idea of it is pretty good. Like, I think it's a pretty good one. I think for the league, it will raise the stakes. Obviously, the soccer might not be great because of the circumstances that the teams are going through and have been going through, but I think the fact that every game matters and the intensity that will bring, I think you're going to see a very good spectacle, and I think people are going to really enjoy it. I mean, that's just me talking from the outside, what I think is going to happen in this tournament. I think MLS will see that, an increased interest in that, and will maybe try to figure out down the road how do they fit something like this on a maybe biannual basis, or how they can figure this out. Obviously, having all your teams, locked up in a hotel for a month is not, in one city away from their families and friends, is not an easy ask. But I think if you can raise the prize money and make it more lucrative, I think this is much better than any of these other competitions like the MLS Liga MX
sure.
Campeones Cup, or these Leagues Cup that was invented last year. I think this competition, not only just from the sporting aspect, I think from media aspect and a way to market the league, I think it can be big time. I think this could just be a starting point for what this tournament could be. Like today, I don't know if you were tied up with being sports work earlier today, but when they had the draw, obviously you could tell during the draw that this was very put together last minute, because the production between the way they did the balls, and they pulled it out of the bowls. It looked like they bought some plastic balls at like Amazon on Amazon.com or at Walmart, and they took a black Sharpie and just put like numbers on the balls. And I think that's actually what they did, because for the Eastern Conference, when they did the Eastern Conference draw first, the balls just had numbers on them. Then when they did the Western Conference balls, they had the letter W for Western and then the numbers. So they just like added that. I don't know. It was clearly very last minute, but like I said, if they can make this a thing, more of a thing in the future, then I think that, even that could be more of a production, and I think that all can help MLS in its goal to grow and reach more eyeballs.
Yeah, for sure. And not to mention that CONCACAF berth that they get is taken away from the team with the best points tally that doesn't win the Supporter Shield and is in the opposite conference. Did I get that right? Did I explain that correctly?
That is correct. I know it's a very confusing and tongue-tying rule, but you got it nail on the head.
Right. Is there a better way to explain that? By the way, one advantage that NYC FC will not have is that they won't be playing in their tiny, tiny pitch at Yankee Stadium. So no home field advantage for NYC FC. And just to finish the conversation on this particular point before we move on to the next topic, look, I mentioned it, and it's interesting that you and I agree on this, because it's not like we talked about this before we started recording, that this could very possibly be a format that would be adopted in the future. And I agree with you that, having everybody sequestered in a hotel for a month is not ideal, and there are going to be alternatives to that in a post-COVID world, right? We're still dealing with COVID, and this is palatable. This sort of tournament is really palatable to an American audience that likes playoffs, to a TV, to a broadcasting company that can package it beautifully, and sponsorships sponsors that would attach themselves to the product. Last words before we move on to our next segment.
Just to quickly touch on the matches on my end, I think the Orlando City game is obviously the most important because it's the first one and it kind of sets the path. I think it's probably the most winnable one. Just on paper, again, we don't know the rust, but just on paper, I think it's the most winnable game. I think the Philadelphia Union are going to be a very tough test. Chicago Fire is another winnable game, in my opinion, for Inter Miami. So I think if they can win the first game and the last game, that gives them 6 points. That should get them through to the knockout rounds. And then from there, obviously, it's win or go home, and anything can happen there. But I think if they can win that first game, that's going to be the key, winning that first game. But I think they can win that first game, and I think they can win that last game, and I think they can take 6 points from this group, and that should be enough to advance out of Group A.
We do have testing in place. We started testing our guys on Saturday, and then again on Monday. We tested again this morning, and we'll test every other day leading up to the time we depart for Orlando.
Franco, Paul McDonough has been doing the rounds, a conference call interview this week, as well as an appearance on Extra Time Radio on MLS, and a couple of topics of interest to Inter Miami supporters. Number one, the expectations for Orlando, so the Orlando performance metrics, as I will put it, and then the desire for the club to sign 3 new players, hopefully, after this tournament. You've been very involved in covering this. What breaking news can you give us, or what can you analyze when it comes to this topic or these topics?
So just to touch on the player signings, Paul McDonough today on Extra Time Radio spoke about wanting to sign not 2 players anymore, but 3. He said that Inter Miami has cap flexibility to do that now. Where he said is, obviously the DP would probably be in the attacking part of the field. He didn't specify a position, but anyone that's followed the team even before the pandemic knows it's probably going to be a goal-scoring striker that they're looking for. That's a glaring spot that they haven't filled on this squad. Then obviously there's a TAM number 8, a center midfielder. Those were his words. So he's looking to fill that spot. That's where Agustin Almendra was supposed to come in and fill that void back in February, March, but obviously that deal didn't get done, and then the pandemic hit. So that's something they're looking to address. And then he said Inter Miami now has the number 1 spot in the MLS allocation order, which is, for people that don't know or might be new to MLS, it's a player signing mechanism that ranks teams from 1 to 26. And once you're at the top of the list, you can use it to sign a player that meets certain criteria. Usually it's an ex-MLS player or a national team player coming back to MLS from abroad. And once you use it, you go to the end of the list. So LAFC right now officially is number 1 on that list. But behind the scenes, it sounds like they have signed Andy Nahar, the Honduran international, by using the number 1 spot in the allocation order. So LAFC using that, they go back to the bottom of the line. They're now number 26. Inter Miami now takes the number 1 spot. And with that number 1 spot, Paul McDonough said they can sign somebody in the attack or in a wide position. So those are the 3 areas that they're looking for in terms of the player signings. And I think, dude, if they can make those 3 signings, I mean, Paul McDonough said he wants to make them before the Orlando tournament if possible. It's up to MLS and whether they'll give him the green light to do that, if they'll open the transfer window. But even if they don't, after the tournament, if they give him the clearance, all right, teams, guys can go sign, and Inter Miami can land those 3 players, and they do it at a level that you would expect them to hit, Inter Miami could be a really, really good team, a really, really talented team for the stretch run of the MLS season, because, I mean, there's already some good talent on the squad, and then if you can incorporate 3 more decent to very good level players, I mean, the team can definitely be in the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, for sure, especially with some of the names that have been associated with the club. The list goes on and on and on, and the most the most I'm trying to think of the proper word here, but I can't because it's late. But the names that have really gotten everybody excited are names like James Rodriguez, Luis Suarez, Edinson Cavani, so on and on and on.
He did shoot down James today. Somebody asked, I think on Extra Time, they asked him they were joking with him, but they were like, all right, how does James fit into your plans for the Orlando tournament? They said that with a laugh, and he responded back with a laugh. He doesn't, or he won't, something like that. But essentially saying it's not happening. So,
and probably because the competition now is fierce to sign James Rodriguez, with Manchester United apparently having made a move for the Colombian phenom. Well, that's good news about the signings. The signings are what supporters have been waiting for, and I guess I wouldn't be exaggerating if I used the word disappointing or disappointed, that the fans have been disappointed that there wasn't another big name signed early in the season as Miami was being linked with numerous players. Well, something else that Paul McDonough said was about the tournament and the expectations, and the expectation, he said, is very much to win the competition, to get into the CONCACAF Champions League. But he said that his metric is also seeing just how well the players are absorbing Diego Alonso's ideas. What did you make of that?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because obviously Inter Miami's been a very ambitious club publicly since the onset, and all we heard during these opening few months of the year was that they wanted to fight for trophies, they wanted to win trophies, they wanted to establish this winning culture. Obviously, they didn't get to do that before the break, for the pause in action. They lost both of their games before the stoppage, and obviously he knows that this is a chance to win a trophy and get to the CONCACAF Champions League, which is a stated goal of Inter Miami's. But at the same time, it's a tournament. Inter Miami's still an expansion team that's coming together. Players are still now they're regaining that chemistry with one another. They have to shake off rust. So obviously the goal is to win it, but he understands that it's a tournament, anything can happen, and given the circumstances, Inter Miami might fall short of that. So while he'd like to win the tournament, while he'd like to see the team win the tournament, the real thing he wants to see, tangible progress, is what he's looking for from the team. He wants to see the guys buying into Diego Alonso's plans. Those were his words. He wants to see that. He wants to see the players taking further strides in the style of play, which, interestingly enough, I talked to Diego Alonso about that during his conference call, and something he said was pretty interesting to me, but we can get to that. But he just wants to see progress from the squad overall. He wants to just see a team that plays better, that probably wins at least a game or two, and take it from there, see what happens after that. And Luis Robles, even in a conference call last week that he said, we've talked long about establishing a winning culture, and we haven't done that yet. So this Orlando tournament, this MLS is back tournament, represents an opportunity to begin to do that. So Inter Miami does have some pressure to win. Obviously, if they don't win, it's not a complete failure, but they do need to show progress. They do need to show that they can win games, and they can, they can't just say, oh, we play hard and we compete. That this team is not, that's not their baseline. Their baseline is to fight fight for trophies, and they have to start by doing that by getting wins.
Yeah, but there needs to be some realism about this. One of the common refrains that we have heard as European seasons or European leagues have resumed play is how the break affected the teams, and whether that would in some way destabilize the natural order of things, with the teams that are used to winning perhaps not being able to perform at the same level, and there being a little bit more parity. And we haven't really seen that. In the Bundesliga, we haven't seen that. In fact, we've seen the opposite, with Bayern Munich basically wiping the floor with everybody, Dortmund doing the same except against Bayern Munich. And if we use the same, if we translate that to MLS and the break that these teams have been on, it is fair to say, I think, that Inter Miami is nowhere near a contender to win this MLS is Back mini tournament. You have to look at the favorites. You have to look at LAFC. You have to look at Seattle, the current champions. You have to look at Atlanta. You have to look at Toronto. And then hopefully, I guess if you're an Inter Miami supporter, you hopefully, or you hang your hopes on the possibility that leading up to this tournament, Diego Alonso will have had enough time with his players to translate his ideas once again. Because as you and I spoke about, Franco, what he said at the beginning of the season and what his intentions were in terms of the football that was going to be played by Inter Miami didn't exactly translate onto the pitch. And this is something that you've alluded to numerous times, and I think correctly. So in order for this to work out for Inter Miami, they need to be a little bit fortunate that things click. But one of the points that you just made that I think is really important, and you mentioned his name, Luis Robles, and this is something he said when we spoke to him, and that is creating a new culture. And if they were able to get far in this tournament or even win it, that would go a long way into bypassing what is usually a long road of developing a club culture, a winning culture.
For sure. I think, they've said they wanted to get to the CONCACAF Champions League. That's a good way to get on the bigger map because it's an international tournament, even if it's just regional here in CONCACAF. But this is a very quick way for them to get there. I actually believe that they had talked about, using the Open Cup which is the tournament that hasn't even been held because of the pandemic, as a method to potentially get there. So obviously it's a goal of theirs to try to get there, and this is a good opportunity for them to do that. Obviously it's a tough ask, but it's an opportunity that they have to accomplish that. And just going back to Diego Alonso's tactics, I actually just asked him pretty clearly on the conference call, which is the topic I wanted to talk to you about. I asked him, in the first game we saw a team that tried to play and build up a little more. Obviously they were outmatched by a very good LAFC team, but Inter Miami tried. In the second game against DC United, even though Miami scored and played well for large spells, it was a much more direct team, a lot more long balls, not that possession-based, keep the ball on the ground type of game that they had talked about for the weeks leading up to that. And I asked him about that contrast, and I even mentioned, I think it was Luis Morgan, if my memory is correct, that said during one of the last interviews before the MLS stoppage, I had asked him about that, and he said, yeah, it was intentional that we went a little more direct against DC United. Tactically, it was intentional. So I asked Diego Alonso about that, and Diego Alonso's like, well, as a coach and as a team, you need to be good at all aspects of the game and being able to dictate and dominate play in either facet. And he talked about being able to press high and effectively from that position, as well as being able to sit back and defend a little bit and being able to counterattack and create chances that way. He said no one should minimize one or the other, that they shouldn't be looked at as inferior to either one. So that's interesting, because all we've heard up until the last week is that this team was going to play possession-based soccer. They're going to create chances that way. They're going to score goals that way, and they're going to play a very attractive style. Now it's sounding like, and again, we talked about this, I think, on the very first episode, the Uruguayan style, which is a little more defensive, a little more gritty, a little more fight, tends to counterattack at times. And I think we're going to see both elements now from Inter Miami. I don't think we're just going to solely see a possession-based style. I think the ideas either have changed or have been revealed a little bit more, and that we'll see that once these games in Orlando get going.
Yeah, and 2 points. First of all, you Latinoized Luis Morgan, as you called him.
It's Luis Robles, Luis Morgan. I gotta work on this. It's the Miami ways.
And number two, one thing that you also spoke about is that early in the season, Diego Alonso did say that he had some ideas coming in, but of course those were malleable considering that he still had to establish what kind of players he had. He had to evaluate them and try to figure out which systems would work the best for those players, as any good coach would do, especially one with very little time on the practice field.
Yo creo que los equipos y los entrenadores tenemos la obligación de preparar a los jugadores para todos los escenarios, para poder ser un equipo dominante en cualquier circunstancia, ya sea a través de ser directos, del contragolpe, de poder ser dominante a través de la posesión y del juego. Creo que una cosa no tiene por qué minimizar a la otra, ¿no? El poder ser un gran equipo que presione fuerte y alto y poder ser un gran equipo que defienda fuerte y bajo.
Away from the playing field, Inter Miami has also been busy, with word coming out that there's still a lot going on behind the scenes insofar as a shirt sponsor is concerned. Now, one of the sponsors that was reportedly in the works was Qatar Airways. It seems that now there's some competition in that department. Franco, what have you heard?
Yeah, it's a bit weird because Qatar Airways was reported to have struck a deal. There were even images that surfaced online on Twitter and social media of Inter Miami's home and away jerseys with the Qatar Airways logo on them. And this wasn't just like a mock-up draft or anything. They were actual, real, tangible jerseys with the logo on it. So it's a bit weird. But Paul McDonough, I asked him this week about it. Obviously, fans are curious about it. Fans want to buy the jerseys, but some people are holding off because they think it looks a little too plain without a jersey across the middle. So he said the conversations had kind of died down. Obviously, when the pandemic hit and the stoppage in play happened, but now that things are gaining traction towards a return, that there's been more and more dialogue with potential partners, and that the team and the club is speaking to partners that weren't even involved or weren't even interested prior to the pandemic. So there seems to be renewed interest and new interest from potential sponsors, and he didn't give a percentage of when he thinks it could be done or how likely it is to happen before the Orlando tournament or anything like that. But it sounds like conversations are ongoing, and there appears that there might be a chance that jersey sponsor is announced at some point this year. I know people are curious about that, and obviously people are holding off from buying jerseys. Some people want to buy jerseys, but so again, unfortunately, there's no concrete answer of will it happen or not, but it seems like it's still a possibility. So if you were holding off on buying from a jersey, you might have to wait a little longer, but just know that might not stay plain for the entirety of 2020.
I think I speak for everybody who appreciates jersey designs, that it better be a sponsor that actually has a logo that looks good on a jersey, because there's been such discontentment with the jerseys that Inter Miami are playing in this season, that if they get a sponsor with a, I'm not going to say ugly logo, but with a logo that isn't exactly the most aesthetically pleasing of logos, people are going to be very upset, and Twitter is going to be alight with comments.
Franco, Publix, man. If Publix can get that deal done, I mean, I'm not. This is not me reporting any information or anything. But what would you think about Publix? And then there's some marketing. No. Like, hey, every hat trick you get a free pub sub. Pink? Free pub sub for every hat trick. I mean, dude, a free pub sub. Come on, man.
I like the idea as a marketing scheme, but I think the colors clash unless Publix is willing to change the green to a pink. We don't have much time left on the show. I think we've already gone a little bit long, so we're going to have to narrow down the questions that we have received to one. Franco, I'll let you do the honors. Please read the question, and we will attempt to answer.
I'll apologize to my brother in advance because he always mentioned a question, and we won't get to his this time. But this is from from D Ulloa 23. How is the bubble for media members and owners? Can you guys come and go as you want, or once you leave, you can't go back in the bubble? So
you're going to be like Bubble Boy. Where's that movie? I forget what movie it is.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So for my understanding is And again, we just got the news yesterday with a link to apply for a credential and that the whole nine. From my understanding is that, again, and I'm non-rights holder media. There's rights holders like ESPN and TUDN that maybe their rules are a little bit different. But for us that don't have rights and just cover the league independently, or not independently, but just don't have rights to broadcast MLS, the only thing that media can do at this tournament is essentially go to games and watch the games from a special area or a designated area. There's no interviews post game. There's no in-person interviews post game. Everything's going to be done through Zoom phone calls. So it's a little bit of an interesting case there, because all you can really do is go in person to watch the games from the stands. You can't really talk to anybody, can't interview anybody. I don't believe you have to stay in a media hotel, because you're obviously not going to be interacting with the players. I think you can just kind of come and go, I believe. I could be wrong. I've just started to hear about this and just started to ask questions about it. But I believe you can come and go, and you can only watch the games from a designated area in the stands, in the select stands that there are at the complex. There will be no media to player interaction directly. It'll all be done through phone calls, Zoom calls, and the like. So that's the setup from my understanding as of right now.
Yeah, and without the opportunity to ask questions, to talk to players, it really diminishes the reasons why media are games like this. Although being there, maybe you become privy to certain things that you wouldn't otherwise.
Some coach F-bomb Diego Alonso. Hey, actually, it's funny enough, real quickly. In the second preseason game against the Tampa Bay Rowdies, back in when they were playing in St. Pete, and this goes to what you're saying about being there in person. Diego Alonso and the Tampa Bay Rowdies head coach had an exchange where things got kind of heated on the field, and they both started kind of jawing at each other, making gestures, and it was kind of funny because the Tampa Bay Rowdies coach was really, really worked up, and Diego Alonso was kind of like what's your problem, and like just kind of mocked him a little bit. Afterwards, they shook hands and they hugged, and I think Diego Alonso, even during this post game availability, he's like, it's just heat of the moment type thing. But yeah, that is those little pieces that you can see when you're in attendance watching a game live. But I agree with you. Obviously, the return, if you can't really talk to players directly, kind of hurts the possibility of attending, or the willingness to attend, or kind of diminishes that return. So from a work perspective, so I'm not sure if I'm even going to go. I might just stay home and cover the games from home. I'll have Wi-Fi here. I don't know how much Wi-Fi there is at the Disney complex. You'll be able to see replays, and you don't have to worry about game ending at 10:30, or at 12:30, doing post game till 2, and then figuring a way how to get to your hotel in Orlando at 2:30 in the morning. So I'm not decided yet on if I'll go or not, but I might stay.
It's a more comfortable way of doing it. Franco, very quickly, any last thoughts, any last bits of information that you want to end the show with?
Yeah, just quickly, I know we didn't touch on it. We've touched on a lot. There's been a lot to talk about, which is great. But just Inter Miami's plans, Paul McDonough talked about it this week. He said that they're going to stay in Fort Lauderdale as long as possible. You have to be in Orlando in the hotel no later than 7 days before your first game. Miami's first game will be July 8th against Orlando City, so that means July 1st is when they have to get to Orlando. So they'll stay in Fort Lauderdale for the rest of this month, and then they'll head over and start their preparations there for that tournament opener, which it's great that it's against Orlando because you get to see that matchup, but it's also a bit disappointing because you don't get to see the fans. And I would have liked to have seen, the first meeting between Miami and Orlando being one where the fans can attend and you get to feel that rivalry and that passion and that spectacle that would have been seeing the purple jerseys on one side, seeing the pink jerseys on the other side. I think that would have been great. Obviously, we're not in ideal circumstances. It is what it is, but I think the game. I think the game will still be. It'll still have plenty of intrigue.
Well, we'll see that if there is any apparent animosity, it will be organically developed through the game and not from the stands. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it will be a blessing in disguise. And by the way, Paul McDonough did say in one of his interviews that he wanted to keep his players at home with their families as close as possible to the tournament. And with that, we have come to an end of the podcast. And you know that you guys can follow us on social media. Not difficult to find, so I won't spout all the handles. But please leave a review of the podcast on iTunes. Let us know what you think, but only if it's something nice.
We're actually doing pretty well. We've gotten like 10, 12 reviews on iTunes or Apple Podcasts as it's called now.
Is that your brother pretending to be people?
My brother has bought 12 iPhones. Actually, my brother hates iPhones, so he's definitely. I don't even think he's left a review because he doesn't. I don't know if there's a way to do it if you don't have an iPhone, but yeah. So we've actually gotten some reviews, and I think we're in the 5-star rating so far. So hopefully, hopefully there's. Hopefully I don't jinx us, but.
No, that's friends and family. That's friends and family when you're in the 5-star region. Okay, and with that, hope you guys enjoyed the pod, and hope you'll be with us next time we record, which will probably be next week.
Yeah, man, we should be getting back to this more regularly now that the tournament approaches and the games get closer. So, looking forward to it. I know I say that a lot at the end of these episodes, but it's kind of been stop and go. So. Let's get back to having games, man. I can't wait to just analyze the games with you again. I think that's the most fun I've had on this pod. I think I've heard some feedback. I think that's when people enjoyed listening to the most, just us talking soccer, the actual X's and O's of the game. And let's get to it, man, because it's been even though I know you've been giving me crap about playing PES and playing football, it's been 3 long months without soccer. So let's get back to it.